Okay, so Mary, thanks for setting up this meeting with me today. I guess we had this idea about a week ago that we should probably have a conversation about career coaching, like under the circumstances. And I had some things to share too. But I think just for transparency's sake, you've been my kind of life coach and career coach for it feels like 2 years now.
I think so.
Yeah, 2 remarkable years. So why don't we just start with you sharing a bit about how you got into coaching?
Absolutely. So I have to actually go back to my family to get to why I ended up in coaching. So when my daughter had just turned 15, she had a terrible accident. She actually broke her neck and she became a quadriplegic. And of course, that was absolutely life altering. I have two daughters and my husband. And it's funny, we talk with COVID about new normal. Well, I remember the doctors saying to us, we had a new normal. And we did, because my daughter ended up being in a wheelchair and we had to learn how to live with that. And I was kind of her primary support. I was fortunate enough to be able to spend time with her in the hospital every day. She was there for 5 months in the rehab. And yeah, like I just basically gave my life to Jessica. And fast forward about 4 years later, Jess was doing great. She had returned to university. She was in a wheelchair, but she had fully adapted. She had got her driver's license. I still remember how excited she was about that, and that huge amount of independence. And yet I was still kind of living for her. And I had the opportunity to work with a coach, and I had never done that before. I had taught job search programs for a number of years and had done some sort of informal coaching, but I'd never really dug into the deep ends of true coaching. And this coach said to me, listen to my story and how, I'm still living for Jess and doing everything for her. And, at this point, like Jess is 19. And this coach said to me, Mary, you need to take back your life. And it was like, like for me, it was an epitome. I don't remember get the right word.
Epiphany,
Epiphany.
epiphany.
Thank you. Epiphany. Exactly. And I still have this worn out piece of paper that says take back your life in my office on the wall. I'm looking at it right now. And it really was an epiphany for me, because it was like this coach was right. She had said, you're still living your life for your daughter, and she doesn't need you like she did before. And it was true. I then had a conversation with Jess, and Jess is like, yeah, like mom, I got this. I'm doing well. And you can kind of loosen the mom hold. And so that same year, within literally probably a month, I went, you know what? I'm going back to school and I'm going to become a coach. And so I was 50 at the time, and it's a little scary at 50, and especially to have to learn and be with lots of people that are younger than you. And my husband was behind it as well and supporting me, but at the same time, it was like, ugh. But I did. And so I went through, did the whole thing over the next year, got my certification through the International Coaching Federation, and started to coach. And it's just like, wow, like it is what I meant to do in this world. And I was just so excited to be able and to be able to continue to do that. And I love
Yeah.
it.
And just to quantify, like to fast forward now, like you've coached, I don't even know, like how long have you been coaching, and like how many people roughly have you coached at this point from that moment on?
Probably from that moment on, I would think more than 100,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And what I love is that I'm seeing clients come back to me later with new things, new transitions, and they want to work with me again. And I've had clients as well that have referred me people like yourself, which has been fantastic. And there's nothing better than to have a referral from a past client, because then you realize, that, hey, you are making a difference in people's lives. And um, my tagline is inspiring people to reach their full potential. And that's what I truly believe in. And that's what I realized I wasn't doing. Like everything changed when I became a coach. My confidence level went up. My marriage got better. I mean, I've been with my husband since I was 16, and almost 38 years we've been married. And so it's like, yeah, like everything really was impacted by my going into my and having my own business and coaching other people.
Hmm. So what is coaching?
Great question. And it's kind of a tough one to explain until you actually are part of it. But coaching is a partnership to start with. It's a partnership between the coach and the client. And we work together. And as a coach, I get really curious about what you're working on. I consider myself both a life and a career coach because I think life is everything and it includes the career pieces to it. So I help you look at different perspectives to look at things. We challenge the beliefs that you have. Are the beliefs serving you? Are they not? What are those thoughts in your head you're getting? Are they really being helpful for you? Are they moving you forward? And we work together on what your goals are. And there's a lot of what I call the inner work. And that's, looking at your values as well. And what are those internal values and how do they drive you and which values are getting triggered? And, like, why are you really frustrated if you're at this job? It could be values around freedom are being triggered, or who knows, control or other things. So uh, it really is a partnership. And so I don't give you the answers, but through my powerful questions, I help you to come up with, what you need and to have your best life and reach your potential.
Yeah, and talk a bit about the types of people that you work with. Like, is coaching just for people fresh out of high school who don't know what they want to do yet? Like, what kinds of people have you worked with?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've worked with people from entry level to professionals, education levels, from people that are not so much out of high school. My sweet spot is probably in the 30s and up. Love to work with, yeah, exactly. Love to also work with moms because I have such strong values around family, but I don't limit to moms. And yeah, so like I remember working with one fellow that had a doctorate and was hoping to teach in university, didn't work out. He ended up starting his own small business and is doing really well with that. And so yeah, all kinds of folks, different educational levels, but definitely kind of that age 30s and up is kind of my favorite sweet spot.
Yeah, so is it true that you've been working on an ebook?
Yes.
So all this time now you've put a real concrete asset together. What's that about?
Yeah, so that's kind of exciting. So I delved into the internet looking for some templates, and because values are such an important part of the work that I do and the work with my clients, I thought it might be kind of fun to put an ebook together about values that somebody could work on themselves. So obviously, working with a coach can enhance that process around your values. But what this does is it gives you a starting point, and it helps you to um, key in on what are your values and really just help you understand it. Because most people, if you said, oh, what are your values, your personal values, they're like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? And yeah, so it's kind of an exciting, it's just a short little ebook, but it's a fun one.
Yeah, it's funny that that happened to me for sure when you and I met, and I'll talk about that a bit. But I think there's this elephant in the room, and that is COVID-19. Can you just comment a bit on like what's changed in terms of your role as a coach and like what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, COVID-19 definitely, it's everywhere, right? Sometimes I try to play this game when I'm calling my best friend, and it's like, how about we don't talk about it at all? And it's really hard to do because it's like into everything. It's affected all of us in some ways. And fortunately for me, I'm still in a pretty good place. And in fact, what I'm seeing is probably more clients because people are now, they're hunkered in. A lot of them are still working from home. We've started to move into phase two, but at the same time, people are scared. They have anxiety. I know for myself, like I've seen it too. And the anxiety around not sleeping as well, and getting headaches and things because I worry about my kids. I have a kid, in my oldest daughter lives in South Carolina on her boat. So, that's a little terrifying if I think about it too much. So, it definitely affects everyone. It affects emotionally, it affects you. Anxiety levels come out, whether you had anxiety before or not. But I think there's a plus side to this, a positive as well. And for me, the positive is there's opportunity. And because people are hunkered down, they're starting to reevaluate what they're doing. And they're going like, do I really want to keep doing this? or do I want to look at something else? And so that's one of the things I'm seeing with a number of new clients that I've started working with is they've decided like, I don't like what I'm doing, and or I'm not happy with my life how it is, and I want to make some changes. And so I think there's the opportunity in slowing down as well. Like I've read a couple of books in the last 2 months, which normally yeah, exactly. Normally it takes me a lot longer to read a few books, but I've had the time and time to reflect as well. And it's been great. And, like this little ebook values on values that I put out, um, that was just something I kind of did on a whim. And I rediscovered how much I like building curriculum and doing training too, because I have a training background as well. So
Right.
yeah. So
So, we had spoke before today about this assumption that no one's hiring right now, and I thought what you had to say there was pretty interesting.
yeah, absolutely. So it's true. People have got that belief that COVID-19 is happening, everything is shut down. The news, if you watch too much news, it's all doom and gloom. I really limit how much media I'm looking at, but still trying to be informed. And I've had two clients in the last month that have got work. And I also have several colleagues. One colleague just got a new job in IT. Another colleague is actually in retail, which retail, is suffering, and she just got a promotion. So it is still happening that there is work out there. And I think what people have to think about is industries are changing. So, think about what has COVID done? Security systems, for instance, there's a lot more security. Webinar systems like Zoom and Skype and Teams and all of that. I mean, they're booming. Digital, anything that's digital, training. If you're in learning and development and you can switch from in-person learning to digital and start and help companies do that, well, bang, you've got work there. Construction is doing well. It never really totally shut down, so it's still doing well. And then I think about the government side. I mean, every day we see the prime minister announcing more and more funding. Well, those programs need people. So the government is definitely going to be hiring too in order to be able to manage all those programs. They're going to have to. And then I think about, say one of my favorite things to do is say you're an accountant and you think, okay, well, I can only work in this area. And it's like, well, no, like think about what are the industries that are growing, tech, security, healthcare is huge. And they're going to need finance people in healthcare as well. So targeting the different markets, and there's work out there. I think that's the good news.
Yeah, I'll admit, even for myself, I'm looking for work right now,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
upskilling in the meantime. And one of the things that I'm really preoccupied with is looking at different job descriptions and thinking, okay, I can do what they're describing in this job description, but my resume and the language I'm using doesn't necessarily match the way that things are being talked about now. Do you see that often?
Yeah, definitely. You bring up a couple really good points there that I'd like to highlight. So, first of all, when we see job descriptions out there, that's the employer's wish list. So that's what they would love to have in a new hire. But they're not necessarily going to get that. And so I always tell people if you've got 75% or more of what they're looking for, then apply. Because definitely that's the case. Now, speaking to what you said about, you've got this, but your resume doesn't reflect it. And that's where looking at different ways to add things into your resume, changing it up. You really have to probably customize your resume for many different roles. And so new keywords, picking those words that industry is using now, using the job boards differently, not to apply for work, but to come up with ideas of companies that are growing. So if a company is advertising that they're looking for a CFO, then they may be growing. So they might be looking for other people. They may need somebody in IT. And so working out those transferable skills as well. And, you and I have talked about that before, and then highlighting that and really painting that picture for the prospective employer. And then, of course, something that you're really good at, you might want to speak about, is networking, which really is the name of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get into that. Did I miss anything before I talk about my journey a little bit?
No, I don't think so. I think, I think one of the things with, I just want to say about COVID is it's a time of reflection and it's a time to be gentle with yourself because I know I did myself for the first while. I was really beating myself up that I wasn't as productive as I was in the past. And it's like, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm healthy. My family is healthy. We're doing well. And I know not everybody is in that place. I'm very, very fortunate. And so just being able to express gratitude and to be thankful, and also think of this time as a little bit of a gift for yourselves as well, to kind of slow down and reflect and look at like what's on the other side. What do you want more of when this is over? And hopefully it's going to be over sooner than we think, but we don't really know. We are living in a new normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think back to when we first met and where I was sort of at in my life and who, like, I guess the limits I had placed on myself about like what was possible.
Mhm.
um and was just totally unprepared. So um I remember connecting with you and not knowing how to define my values, which was weird because at the time, I was probably 33. I had like a senior role. I was well educated, and then all of a sudden was just looking for work and didn't hadn't even been updating my resume, my LinkedIn profile. I had no real like broad network outside of my place of work. Like I had really doubled down on that life. And had just come out of school. I went back to school and was doing part-time school. So I had some skills, but I remember the exercises that we did. You really helped me to get organized at a time when, the world was my oyster in a way.
Yeah.
So I found that really valuable. And I want to sort of emphasize that um, you didn't really have answers for me. And I thought back to when I was in sports more and what that sort of coaching was like. And it was very similar. It was like, you're not here to give all the right answers and to help me navigate through something without putting any effort in. You really were and are like a coach. And so the growth
Mhm.
really needed to come from me. And you weren't trying to help me shortcut growth that needed to happen for me. So, um, yeah, without going into detail, I think that
Yeah,
was big.
absolutely. I think one of the points you came across there that I really want to highlight is that coaching is a process. I work with people for a minimum of 3 months because it takes time. And, we have these coaching calls. I do everything by phone. I always have. So it works quite nicely in the place we're in now. But at the same time, there's so much learning and growth that happens in between the calls. And I always tell my clients that too, to be patient and think of this as a gift to yourself. And it's an investment in who you are. And it's not cheap, I know that, because I have a coach as well, but there's so much benefit to it.
Yeah, and I remember at the time I had said, okay, I'm going to get a career coach upon recommendations from different people in my life. And then I'm going to get a psychologist or, someone to help me with my
Mhm.
like mental health. So I've got my professional and I've got my mental health. And I just remember for a very short time, I was meeting with both of you. And then I realized that, like, you know what? I haven't actually connected with this other person in a way that I feel is like valuable. And so when you say and said that you were a life coach, it really sort of clicked for me that, for lack of a better term, like you were kind of a one-stop shop to help me navigate not just like career, but like personal values and some of those stories I was telling myself. And so I kind of ended that engagement and realized that probably with like who you are and the exposure and training that you had, like you're well equipped to not just help someone find the next stage of their career or become an entrepreneur or polish up their resume. There's like a holistic kind of approach to the work from what I could see. And I didn't really expect that at the outset.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things. I mean, that's why I call myself a life and a career coach, because I believe our work is only part of who we are. And in the coaching process that I went through applies to everything, whether it's your relationship or your work or your health or whatever goals you want to set for yourself. We need to take a look at you as a whole person. And what many of my clients say is they have so much more confidence and awareness about themselves, and when they come out of the process, and really it can apply to all different things. You mentioned about the stories you tell yourself, and yeah, in coaching we refer to that as the saboteurs that are there, and they're saying like, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, all those, right? That inner
Yeah.
dialogue. And we've all got it. It's our brains are wired for that, unfortunately, that negativity. But the great news is we can counter that, right?
Yeah, that's saboteur. That's key. Yeah, we could go on, but I've talked about that before, and I remember being at this Unbounce conference in Vancouver here, and I had this concept of the saboteur in my mind, and I forget the speaker. She was so good, but she was like, "Okay, I want people to stand up if you agree with like the following statement," and she had like 5 different statements. But long story short, even like senior level executives all have this like imposter syndrome,
Yes.
or they have this like some part of this like negative self-talk that comes from like somewhere. And I was just amazed to see that like 75% of people were still standing at the end of it. And yet I knew some people in the room who were still standing, and like they didn't come across in that way.
Hmm.
So I still think regardless of where we're at in our careers, at least based on the numbers in that room that day, um, there's still a lot of work to be done, really important work to be done, and to remind ourselves of how that plays a part in our like confidence and decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen research done on it as well. There's one research study, and it was a number of CEOs, and they had them write down on a piece of paper what they were most afraid of and what was sort of happening in their heads. And it was the same things, right? I'm not good enough. And this was a CEO that's running a multi-million-dollar company. And so I say the human brain has that negative piece to it that is wired into us. And we all have it. It doesn't matter whether you've got high levels of education or experience, or you're running multi-million-dollar companies. We all have that inner critic or saboteurs. But the great news is with coaching and support, you can work with it, and you make a choice. Do you want those saboteurs to run your life, or do you want to grow and move forward?
Yeah. Well, I won't ask them what they want. Those
Good idea.
um yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what's different this time, and then maybe sort of check in with you and see if that's sort of matches what you're seeing out there as well. But I think, this time around I've been again searching for work like many people as a result of COVID-19. And I'll admit this time around, with that initial work that we had done like a Berkman personality test, and we'd had, at least 10 sessions um, like 2 years ago. But now when I kind of dusted off my resume, I had a really good base. I knew my values. I had the confidence to network and do informational interviews. And I have been spending time applying for work, but I think what's different this time as well is I'm networking a lot, and I'm upskilling as well. I'm not just shopping around the skills that I have and trying to rewrite and redescribe what they are. I'm actually actively upskilling right now. And I think what's given me a lot of energy is creating too. I started this podcast, SciComm and Civic Tech, and I
Mhm.
won't say much about it, but I was listening to a lot of podcasts in December, and then at some point I thought, whoa, I really like podcasts, and with my marketing background, I wonder if I could technically create something new and pursue my interests in some ways like totally outside of marketing and my profession and my like work history. Could I create something new? And it's brought me like a, to use an overused term these days, like an unprecedented amount of joy. And it's actually adding to a skill set that now I can speak to that I never had a chance to do in previous roles. So I'm like building my resume and building my core skill sets while I'm looking for my next role, essentially. And that's been just so much fun.
It's great. Well, and I'm excited because I got a chance to be one of your guests.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think a few more tips also that I've sort of recognized as being valuable compared to the last time is networking outside of just meeting the next employer or trying to apply for the next role. I've gone to so many meetups, Eventbrite events, Facebook events. You know, I'm on LinkedIn quite often trying to curate a network of people who are putting on events and trying to respond to this COVID-19 crisis right now. And that has really helped me to broaden an understanding of like who I am, what I know, who I know, who's hiring, what's trending. And you know, I think the whole job search journey requires that kind of perspective as opposed to just being in like a very narrow lane of sort of serial job applications.
Yes.
So I want to call that out as distinct this time, is that I'm working hard and smart and diversifying like an understanding of, I guess, like the economy and my network.
Yeah, that's great to hear. The networking is such a big piece. Like we often think about when we're networking with someone for a purpose, like looking for work, we're just gonna, that's what we're gonna do. Are you hiring? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, no, no. Like networking is creating relationships. And as you said, it doesn't necessarily be relationships with someone that you want to work for because we're all interconnected. And I think about, we're in BC and Vancouver in particular, and it is such a networking town. If you ask people how they got their last job, 80 to 90% of those people got it from somebody they knew or were
Mm,
told about it from somebody they knew, right? And then there was that interconnection. And so I think if we look at things from the point of view of what can we do for that person as well as what can they do for us and build that relationship, I think that's so important because especially in these times, I mean, we need each other and we need each other's support. And whatever that looks like, it's great to be able, I mean, that's when I think about what do I want after all of this, what do I want to see? I want to see that I connected with people more. And I really try every
yeah,
day to reach out to somebody and connect with them, even if it's just like, hey, how are you doing? Like tell
yeah.
me, no, really, how are you doing?
Okay, maybe one more question, unless you
Sure.
you have any questions for me. But what, with the people that you've worked with, what are maybe one or two skills that you recognize people have that don't really come out on the resume and that people should like emphasize a little bit more given how valuable these traits are?
That's a really good question, Gordon. I think one of the things is versatility. Like, I don't think people always recognize in themselves that they're not bound to one industry or even maybe one type of work, that, the transferable skills that they have can really move into other areas. And then focusing on what the results are that they've made, what's the impact that they've had with an organization. And that may not come out in the resume, but maybe they can pull that out in a conversation with someone and how they've changed things. So it's that more of that soft skill that's not always the hard facts.
Yeah. Okay, last one, COVID-19 related. How should people be changing their approach to searching for work now compared to the old normal? Or what are you seeing that people have really had to change up in this search these days?
Well, the first thing is the mindset. Like there is work out there. And so it's your jobs to find where it is. So look at the companies that are growing right now, the industries that are growing right now. And I think just be hopeful about it all. And, maybe this isn't the time that you're going to get the dream job, but maybe it's the time that you're going to build some amazing relationships that later are going to benefit you and that you're going to be able to benefit them with. So I think that's a big part of it.
I like that. All right, well, why don't we end there? Thanks so much
Great.
for your time today, Mary.
Thank you, Gordon. It was a pleasure talking with you.